had to put retail in, it never worked. It was terrible, but you had to do it in order to comply with whatever benefits you got from the city to build office. Today, I think it's easy to say that the integration of multifamily and hotel and retail and office is critical to the success, maybe not just of your own project, but of the neighborhood, and as you expand the neighborhood, how those fit together. So I guess I would ask you each, how important is that? How did it come to play in your environment, in your project, and the implications of it not being there, and how do you get there?
So I think if you start with Time Warner Center, which at the time was probably the largest mixed-use project ever done, you had retail, you had residential, you had office, and hotel. And there were a lot of lessons learned at Time Warner. It's extremely expensive, it's extremely difficult to build mixed use, but the benefits are there if you can capture them. And so when we went to Hudson Yards, and what we learned with Time Warner also is that value is created at not just in the building, but in a lot of the land around. So as we went to Hudson Yards and were designated there, we very early on went and tried to assemble as much land as possible around Hudson Yards. Today, we own or control about 28 acres of land, 20 million square feet of development, over $25 billion worth, but of every different asset class, so office, retail, residential, hotel, schools, parks, cultural facilities. We're really building a city unto itself over there. In the lessons learned category, we're not building all those things in the same buildings. So we're building mixed-use development as opposed to mixed-use buildings. It's a lot less expensive, and the benefits are pretty much the same. The retail is an absolute driver. The new modern office space is a driver. The residential on top of retail connected to the parks and plaza is a driver. Culture is a driver. So all those things coming together are very important. You need to create critical mass. The other thing with these large scale projects is if you look at some of the competitors that were originally competing for the designation, some of them had all office buildings. Well, we would have been here for the next 25 years building office building after office building until you could actually eat up all that demand. And besides, nobody really wants to move to an office building when the rest of the land is being under construction for the next 20 years. So you have to figure out how do you build as much of this all at the same time. And the only way you can possibly do that is by mixing up the uses so that you're not competing with yourself. So for today, of all that 28 acres and 20 million square feet, 50% of it, everything from 33rd Street or 30th Street to 34th Street is under construction at the same time, over 10 million square feet, and it will all open by end of 2018. And so that's why people are willing, the office tenants are willing to take the gamble, because they know when they move in, they're moving into a finished location. When we started pitching Hudson Yards to corporations, we would tell them how great the office buildings were. They were new, modern, they had the greatest technology, they had all those great things. And then, as Jared said, what came back, and that got us through the real estate departments and the CFOs, but when it went to the CEO, they would have the same story over and over again. It was all about attracting talent. And how could they use real estate to attract and retain talent? And it's cliche to say, but live, work, play is what attracts talent today. And so building that mixed use environment really starts to feed on itself. The retail environment, the restaurants that are going to be there, the culture that's going to be there, attracts the corporations, attracts the talent that wants to be there, rezoning the neighborhood in West Chelsea, having the High Line, having the culture shed, all that comes together and feeds on itself and creates a neighborhood. And ultimately, that's what will create success.
So in your case, you actually